Welcome to our air-conditioned church.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I'm working this week, so we had it fixed. I was like, we're gonna get fixed before Sunday, right? Please. Yes. So it'll work.
I'll show you some.
All right, so this is a week after the big Father's Day event. Glad you came back. If this is your first time in a regular service, we're especially glad that you're here. And if you've been here for a while, we love each one of you and glad that you're here. So, everybody have a good time last week?
Yeah.
I didn't hear one complaint, except that we ran out of pigs.
Yes.
That was one complaint. But, it was good. Everything went extremely well. Extremely thankful for Joe and his persistence and the whole team that made that happen. So we've been talking about, not last week, this is a funny thing, okay? Not yet. When we used to do car shows back in the day, we would do the same thing at 10:30 or 11 o'clock or whatever. We'd have everybody come in, we'd do a short message, and then because there's so much going on, everybody's setting up. And usually what would happen is we'd have like 20 people come in and sit down, and then there's all kind of noise and racket and everything going on, and nobody's paying attention to what I'm saying. So it's like, okay, this is it, go, and do your thing. And last week, at 10:30, we came in, and the place is full. And I'm going, uh-oh, I better get a microphone. So it was a little bit different. So it was cool. The whole day was cool. And we'll do it again next year, we think. All right, so get ready to get involved, get plugged in, and have some fun. I think everybody had a lot of fun last week. So this week, as I've been talking the past couple weeks before that, we've been talking about keeping up with the Joneses. And if your last name's Jones in here, I apologize, but it's just the way, it's just a phrase. And this week, we've been talking about, the pursuit for more. And some of these may be more difficult than others to handle. 2 weeks ago, we talked about money and things like that, right? Status, we talked about a little bit the week before that. This week, we're going to talk about perfectionism. And I don't know where you are on this. We'll discover this as we go, maybe, but I don't know if you're one of those external perfectionists where everybody knows that you're OCD about everything and everything's got to be perfect, right? Nobody? Okay. Or you're one of those internal. We'll talk about it. How's that? So as we try to head toward perfection, and there's different philosophies and different theories on things, and one of the phrases that keeps coming to mind is that I was told years ago was if you settle for good enough, will it ever be good enough? So there's got to be a balance between it's good enough to making it good enough. And in the process, sometimes we get to that state where we want everything to be absolutely perfect. Now, when our kids are growing up, we've got to understand it's okay to not be perfect, right? I remember as a single guy, I loved to keep my truck clean, right? Back in the day. Yeah, remember when we were dating and I was a little picky about what was in my truck and stuff? Okay, that's a long time ago for me. That's a hard time to remember. And once you have kids, it's like, there's French fries all over the floor, ketchup stains, there's toys everywhere, stuff rolling around you can't get to, things rattling and making noise that just drive you crazy. The smell, yeah. We get those little trees and think we're going to cover it up. It doesn't work. We mess up. And when we mess up, I don't know about you, but a lot of us have a tendency to beat ourselves up, right? We mess up and we go into this cycle of feeling shame and unworthiness and all those things. Then when you get to Matthew chapter 5 in verse, I thought it was 43. What's it say? It says 48. I don't know which one it is. We'll figure it out. But it says, but you are to be what? Perfect. even as your Father in heaven is perfect. So there's no pressure, right? No pressure at all. I know a lot of times with moms, you want to be a perfect mother, or at least a good enough mother. You ask others, am I a good mother? Am I a bad mother? You look on Pinterest and you see these things that are perfect. And has anyone ever tried that? You see something on the internet, you think, oh, I can do that. And then you go to do it, and it doesn't quite turn out the same, does it? It doesn't quite look as good as the picture. It's like going into the fast food restaurant, you look at the picture up on the menu board, and you see the cheeseburger, you're like, oh, that looks good. And you get it, and it's a smushed thing with stuff running out of it. You're like, it doesn't look anything like that. Why? Because nobody's perfect, right? Once you put it in a wrapper, it's all done anyway. You're just going to eat it, so, don't worry about it. But there's this pressure in society that, you've got to have the best crafts. You've got to have the best, you've got to throw the best kid's birthday party, right? And, everybody now they have these themed birthday parties for these kids. Who comes up with this stuff? It's Pinterest, right? Is that where it is? Facebook or what's the other one? Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. We compare ourselves to each other. We see that when people put these things out there that are so awesome, and they're only putting the stuff that they want to on that thing so that you can see how awesome it is when they've made mistakes too, right? So we're comparing ourselves to something that isn't even real. We get to the point where we've got to feed our family organic carrots and kale in order to have the right. I mean, everybody really prefer Cheetos and Oreos, right? That's what we really want. You've got to pray an hour a day. You've got to spend an hour a day in your Bible. You've got to keep a career and work, and you got to be homeroom mom, and you've got to do the laundry and read these books and make sure everybody's got a bath. Please make sure everybody has a bath. I heard the study, and I'll pick on millennials, okay, because it's easy. They say that up to 40% of millennials are not using deodorant. This is an alarming thing to me, okay? My wife will tell you I've got the nose of a bloodhound, right? I smell everything before anybody else smells it. And let me tell you, if you're not wearing deodorant, I'm going to find it, okay? I might not say it, but you'll probably see it on my face, Millennials, if there's any of you in here, please wear deodorant, okay? Some people, it's chemicals. You're putting chemicals. What is it? Tom's natural stuff. They have a whole line of natural things. Go find something, put something on, but don't go around stinking, okay? You're not riding in my truck if you're stinking. I can tell you that right now. Sorry, I'll get back on track. Jeez. I don't know why you guys keep coming back. Glutton for punishment, man. But you feel guilty for not paying enough attention to your kids. You feel guilty for not working hard enough. You feel guilty for taking a vacation. You know that? People feel guilty for taking a vacation. It's healthy, man. Go get away, right? Get some rest. The Sabbath principle is there for a reason. We're supposed to rest. We're supposed to rest we can't even rest our brains anymore. We take the cell phone with us wherever we go. I got that picture of the old phone booth. Remember the old phone booths? It had the door on and the glass and all that stuff. Now the phone booth is like the porta potty out there. That's the phone booth now. That's where you spend all your time on the phone. Don't look at me like you don't know what I'm talking about. We spend all your time on Facebook. Feel like you've got to have everything perfect. You escape to the bathroom, lock the door so you can eat a box of Oreos. That's disgusting. We've got to do the best that we can. We've got to take criticism personally. We obsess about way too many things. We think we're inefficient and ineffective. Paying a price for what you think is success. There's three types of perfectionists that we see here. Number one is the self-oriented perfectionist. You hold unrealistically high expectations of yourself and battle with feelings of guilt, often obsessing to the point of inefficiency. You're prone to procrastination and struggle with deep feelings of inadequacy. That's the self-oriented perfectionist. And there's the externally oriented perfectionist. You believe others expect you to be perfect. To cope with the pressure, you often use self-deprecating humor as a defense. You often feel alone, depressed, and desperate because you know. I think the battery just ran dead.
Battery.
I got some up here.
Got some up here.
I didn't know which ones were good, which ones were bad.
I know.
I got it. It's a red. I get 5 people screaming.
We have to get this battery to 90%.
Look it. Here, you look good.
Wasn't working at all.
Add on that there.
Try another one. There we go.
Maybe.
Nope.
Maybe.
That's gonna die in a second too.
Here we got some.
That's already dead. We got
Throw them away.
Yeah.
Battery crap.
Looking for salt.
There we go. We got fresh ones now. There we go. All right. So, second, we have the externally oriented perfectionist. You believe others expect you to be perfect. To cope with the pressure, you use self-deprecating humor as a defense. You often feel alone, depressed, and desperate because you know you will never be enough. That's the externally oriented perfectionist. Then there's the others-oriented perfectionist. You expect others to live up to your impossible standards. Because you tend to lack empathy, you often tear others down or use abrasive and demeaning humor toward those who don't meet your standards. Did I leave anybody out? We all feel that pressure, don't we? We all have that perfectionist quality in us somewhere that makes us want to do something. There's nothing wrong with having a drive to be better or to want to do better, right? You want things to be the best that they possibly can. But if you're allowing it to affect, if you're allowing it to handcuff you and make you ineffective, you've gone too far. There's got to be a balance somewhere. The root of this whole thing, I believe, is a spiritual problem. It's not just a mental problem, it's a spiritual problem. And perfectionism is a mask for insecurity. When you think about going back to the garden with Adam and Eve, that they were trying to, and this mask for this insecurity, it's something that we're trying to do to cover our sin. When Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, they hid, didn't they? They made fig leaves to cover themselves because now they knew everything had been perverted and distorted in their minds. So they covered themselves with fig leaves. Their insecurity, because of their insecurity, they wanted to cover themselves. They wanted to hide it. And God knew better. So what we do is when we have a problem, our insecurity says cover it up. You follow me? And we've got to stop doing perfectionism. That's what we're talking about. Romans 3:20 says this: for no one, how many people? Zero. No one can ever be made right with God by doing what the law commands. The law simply shows us how sinful we are. We've talked about this, haven't we? Yep. We can't be made right as much as we want to try. You can take the 10 commandments, you can take the 613 commandments that the Pharisees put on top of those, and you can try and uphold all those things, but you're not going to succeed, are you? We fail on a daily, I don't know about you, but I fail on a daily basis, man. Every day I mess up. And if it was up to me to try and live up to some sort of perfection, I would fail. I would not pass the test. It's by God's grace. The law just shows us where we're wrong. And that's the problem with society. Nobody thinks they're wrong, right? They cover it up. They hide it. They lie about it. It's a way that we're taught, I think. On our own, we cannot be perfect enough for God. So why do we have the law? The law is there to show us how sinful we are. And it's very simple. We've gone over this many, many times, right? You think you're a good person? Let's do a little test. Have you ever told a lie? And if you say no, that's a lie. You just lied. Right? We could go on down the list, but we've been able to do that. The law is there to show us how sinful we are. We've failed, we've coveted, we've stolen, we've murdered in our heart, we've committed adultery in our heart. We've done all these things that the Bible says not to do. So we're hopeless, right? There is no hope for us. Is there any hope for us? There's one hope for us, right? How are we made right? In Romans 3:22, it says, we are made right with God by placing our faith in Jesus Christ. And this is true for everyone who believes, no matter who we are. No matter how bad you think you've been, no matter how many sins you think you've committed. We talked Wednesday night, Rachel, about the unpardonable or unforgivable sin, right? And a lot of people will ask me that question, and they'll say, isn't that suicide? Suicide's an unpardonable sin, right? No, it's not. And although I'm not saying suicide's okay by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not the unforgivable sin. It's not the unpardonable sin. The unpardonable sin is rejecting Jesus Christ, blaspheming the Holy Spirit by not allowing him to speak to your heart about who Jesus is and rejecting Jesus in your heart. Because if you do that and you die in your sin, then you're not forgivable. You can't be forgiven after you die. It's got to be a thing you do now. Because after you're dead, it's too late. So that's the unforgivable sin. And what does it take? It takes placing your faith in Jesus Christ now. Everyone who believes, no matter who they are, no matter what they've done, can be forgiven. The only time it's too late is after you're gone. So do it now. That's the only way we're made right with Christ. So hopefully we're looking at two things here on our page, the old way and the new way. The old way, perfectionism, says that what I do and my worth and my value is all my value is what I do. I become perfect by what I do. The grace side of that, and we know what grace is, right? If you use it as an acrostic, the letters GRACE stands for God's riches at Christ's expense. That's what he's given. That's what he's giving to us. That's what he has given to us. So perfectionism says it's what I do. Grace says it's what Jesus has done. There's nothing we can do to make God love us more, right? It's all because of what Jesus did for us. Perfectionism says it's about me. Grace says it's about who? It's about Jesus. That's a big difference, right? You put the pressure on you, you're going to fail. You try to live up to some perfect standard that either the Pharisees, close to what the Pharisees have done or what others put on you, you're going to fail, right? Well, that's real hopeful, PJ. It's human nature. It's who we are. It's in our DNA. It's what we've done. But if you put everything on Jesus and let it be about him, it makes life a lot easier. Yes, I've failed, but thankfully 1 John 1:9 there that says that we're forgiven if we confess. So it's not about me, it's about Jesus. Perfectionism says if I obey, God will love me. That's a strange way of looking at things, you know? And I know we didn't grow up with perfect parents, and a lot of you had far from perfect parents. But if that's what a parent does, if their love is based on what you do, that's a bad parent, right? Your parents should have unconditional love for you, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done. They're still going to love you. They might not approve of you, they might discipline you for it, but they're going to love you no matter what. Perfectionism says, if I obey, God will love me. That's sadistic. Grace says, because God loves, I can obey. You see the difference?
Yep.
Because God loves me, I'm going to do everything I can to please him. Because he's shown me the love that he's given me. Because he sent Jesus Christ to die on the cross for me. I'm thankful, I'm grateful. So I'm going to try and obey what he wants me to do because I love him. Perfectionism says you're winning God's approval. Grace says you're living from God's approval. You can't do anything to make God love you more or less. God's still going to love you no matter what. He may discipline you. The answer to some of your questions and some of your prayers may be no, but he still loves you and he knows what's best for you. So we're not doing this to try and win his approval. We're living the way we are because he already approved us because of what Jesus did for us. Does It's a huge difference, isn't it?
Yes.
So perfectionism, because the pressure's off, that first little point there, choose people over perfection. Because the pressure's off, we can choose people over perfection. Now stay with me here. In Luke chapter 10, everybody knows the story of Mary and Martha, right? Martha's all worried. And some of you are like this. You have the gift of hospitality, and you like to, to be hospitable to people, and you like to entertain, or you like to, have people over, or whatever. Well, Martha, I think, was that way, and she's cleaning up, She's straightening up. Jesus is coming. Make sure everything's straight. Jesus is here. Let's make sure the dishes go to the sink, and let's wash them. Let's put them in, and let's do this. Let's do this. And she's busy about all this stuff, right? Making sure that everybody's comfortable. Now, spiritual gifts or talents or traits or whatever, they can be used for good or bad, right? If you have the gift of hospitality, you like doing these things, that's a wonderful gift. It's one that I don't have. If you come over to my house, it is the way it is. I don't care. You're gonna see the mess, right? My wife, on the other hand, she has the gift of hospitality. She wants everybody to feel comfortable. And we balance each other out. I get on her nerves. It's the way things work, because I'm a slob, But if you have that gift, and you overuse it or you abuse it, then that becomes your total focus instead of the people, then it's out of balance. So we need to choose people over perfection. In verses 41 and 42, the story goes like this. But the Lord said to her, "My dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these details. There's only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her." Martha wanted, Jesus, I'm doing all this work. Tell Mary to help me. She's supposed to be helping me. Why is she just sitting there listening to you? Jesus is teaching. She's sitting at Jesus' feet. She's learning from the Master. Martha wants everybody to feel comfortable, wants everything to be done, wants everything to be perfect. But instead of just focusing on that herself, she starts looking at others and going, why isn't she helping? Jesus, make her help. Right? We've heard it. If you have 2 kids, you've heard this before, haven't you? Right? So take the pressure off. Nobody cares if your pillows have a little crease in them on your couch, okay? Nobody. There's some stuff I just shouldn't say out loud. Nobody cares if there's a sock on the floor, okay? Nobody cares if you go over to somebody's house and you're picking that stuff apart, there's something wrong with you. Don't worry about all of the details. Worry about people. The second one. Choose perfect love over perfect performance. Choose perfect love over perfect performance. Remember I said perfectionism is covering, it can cover sin. It can cover fear. I would say that fear, unhealthy fear, is a sin. Fear is the opposite of faith, right? So what's your fear? Is your fear inadequacy? Do you think that people will look at you and think less of you because of what you do or don't do? So you strive for perfection and you'll do anything, absolutely anything to reach it? Do you fear rejection? If I'm not perfect, if I don't measure up to everybody else's expectations, then I'm less of a person and I'm not worthy. If somebody rejects you based on whether or not you're perfect, you don't need that kind of hassle in your life, right? That shouldn't be what we base our relationships on. Maybe your fear is getting close to somebody. Maybe your fear is really getting to know somebody and sitting down and having a conversation with somebody. So instead of focusing on a person, you're focused on other details or other things and not getting close to somebody who you should be getting close to, because it's about people, it's not about those things. So you fear getting close to somebody because they might see who you are. Maybe you don't want to give those things up. You're putting that fig leaf on instead of worrying about the person that's in front of you. That person in front of you might need you for something that day. And instead of focusing on them or talking to them, You're worried about a piece of lint that's on the floor or something. You're worried if the dish isn't done. Stop choosing people over love. Choose perfect love over perfect performance any day. Matthew chapter 5. This has to balance the whole thing out here. Matthew chapter 5, verses 43 and 44 says, "You have heard the law that says, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you." After that, it says, "If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Don't even the sinners do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect." That's the context for that verse we started out with. It's not about perfection. It's about people. Even when Jesus says, be perfect as I'm perfect, he's talking about perfect love, not perfect performance. And we need to focus on people, not on things. Right? The word perfect here is the word teleos. That doesn't mean to be without sin. Imagine that. We think perfection is without sin or without flaw, right? This word teleos means perfectly mature or complete. Now, an 8-year-old, if you tell them to be perfect, they're not going to be perfect. If you tell them to be mature, they're 8. They're not going to be mature, are they? What age is junior high? What age is that? 11, 12, 13, right there. You want to see imperfect and immature? Hang out with some 11, 12-year-old boys, right? Remember those days? Junior high? Yeah. Every foul noise you can think of, they're trying to imitate. Every stinky thing they're trying to put in your face. I mean, it's just mayhem with those. Their hormones are kicking in. They don't know what ends up, and they're just going crazy because it's what they do. So when you tell an 8-year-old or an 11-year-old to be mature, are they going to be mature? No. Well, if you're 24, 25, 26, 40, 50, 60, 59, if that's your, no. If I tell you to be perfect, it's not, or if God tells you to be perfect, it's not to be, and yes, we want to strive for not sinning, correct? And really what sin means in the Bible, literally the word sin, I forget the Greek word, but it means missing the mark, okay? Like last week, we had the hatchet thrown out here, right? Anybody do that? Okay. All right. So if there's a thing there you're supposed to try and hit, right? A bullseye. And if you throw and you hit that thing and it lands in there, that is good. If you throw and you miss, does anybody have one bounce back at you? Couple? Okay. So if you throw and it bounces back at you and you don't duck, you should have ducked. You've seen those videos, right?
They're not here today.
They're not here today. Yeah, they're still in the hospital. If you throw and you miss that bullseye, you've missed the mark. So there's a mark that we have set in God's word for things. And if we hit that mark, that's being perfect. If you miss that mark, that's what's considered sin. So we want to shoot for the bullseye every time, right? But you're not going to hit it every time, are you? I mean, we want to, and I feel bad even saying that, but that's why 1 John is there. 1 John was written to Christians, and it says, if you say that you have no sin, you're only fooling yourself. So we have sin. 1 John 1:9 was written for us failures, for us misfits, so that we can go, hey, I've messed up. What do I do? Well, confess to God that you've messed up. Agree with God that you're wrong. And that's hard for some of us, isn't it? We want to be perfect. So admitting that you have a fault, admitting that you failed is extremely difficult for some of us. But we've got to man up or woman up and say, God, I messed up. I need your forgiveness. The Bible says he will cleanse you. Not just say, whatever, it's okay, don't worry about it. He'll cleanse you. He gives you a do-over. That's awesome, isn't it? Hitting the restart button, man. I get to do this all over again, just like it never happened. Learn from it. If your perfect purpose, too many P's in this thing today. Perfectionism. Your purpose, according to Matthew chapter 5, is two things. This is, I believe, two of the 5 things that the church should be doing. Number 1 is to love God. And number 2 is to love your neighbor. Who's your neighbor? Anybody that you're around. Anybody that's next to you, across from you. Does that mean that guy that's driving like a moron out there is my neighbor and I gotta love him?
Yeah.
There we go. Love him just like, you gotta love him just like you love the donut people at the counter, right? Yeah, I had to bring the donuts up, didn't I? You don't understand. I've got fears that are outrageous. I feel inadequate constantly. I don't measure up to anybody else. I fail constantly. I just don't measure up to anybody else. Your performance, your achievements, are you just covering up insecurities because you feel inadequate? I gotta show how good I am though. No, you need to show how good God is, right? We've got to be willing to say, you know what, I've failed, I've messed up. And when we do that, when people understand, I try to be pretty open and honest while I'm up here. I'm not good at faking things. I'm not good at buffaloing anybody. I am who I am. If I act somehow different up here than the way I am anywhere else, I'm a hypocrite, and I can't keep up with that. You know, I can't say one thing and say another later on. It just doesn't work for me. So I'm open, and that openness and honesty sometimes, I think that's what people need to see in our lives, and what they need to hear. Yeah, you know what? I failed. I've messed up. I wish I could do better, but thankfully God forgives me. Thankfully we have a good God who forgives and gives us second chances. The Psalms say His mercies are new every morning. He sent Jesus to die for us while we were yet sinners. He died for us. We've got to choose people over perfection. Our performance, your performance and how perfect you are isn't going to win anybody to Jesus. You know that? But your love for Him will.
No doubt.
Author and coach Bev James says this: perfectionists live under the watchful eye of the biggest critics, the pushiest taskmasters, and the most aggressive standard setters themselves. Nobody expects you to be perfect. Nobody expects you to be without fault. Stop covering it up and start living life the way that you should. Brady Brown says, when perfectionism is driving us, shame is riding shotgun, and fear is the annoying backseat driver. You catch that? Let me say it again. When perfectionism is driving us, shame is riding shotgun, and fear is the annoying backseat driver. Don't let those things drive you. Let your love for God and His grace drive you. Let Him be the one that's in the driver's seat. Then the whole thing, God is my co-pilot. If God's your co-pilot, you just switch seats. He needs to be in control, not you.
No doubt.
Let's pray. Lord, I never had an idea that I could be perfect. But Lord, I know sometimes that drive for perfectionism, whether it's something that I put on myself or I feel someone else has put on me, I know, God, that sometimes that gets in the way. God, I confess to you, I agree that I'm wrong, and that I need to be more like you and more about people instead of myself or what others think of me. So Lord, this morning, forgive us. Help us to live for you, most importantly, to love you with all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love others like we love ourselves. Lord, if there's somebody in here who hasn't quite turned everything over and made you the pilot, instead of co-pilot. This morning, God, help them to turn that over. And just say, Lord, I trust you. The best way I know how, I give you my life. I'm putting you in control. Instead of hiding my sin, I ask for forgiveness because of what Jesus did on the cross. Lord, I need you in my life, and I need you to be in that driver's seat. So right now, I give it all to you. Heart, mind, soul, and strength. Help me to live for you from this day on. Lord, if they prayed that, I ask that they would just remember that you said you'll never leave or forsake us. Lord, for those of us who may have done that a long time ago or even just a short time ago, help us to stop playing games. Start being real with you and others. Help us to see you through us, even in our imperfections and our failures. Help them to see you. It's in Jesus' name we pray, amen.
No.
Appreciate you listening today and hope you got something out of it. We're going to stand and sing. If you just spend a moment with God quietly, then do so. And I encourage you to sing if you can sing. Make a joyful noise, the Bible says, right?
Yeah.